Senator Merkley.
Thank you, and I'm completely down with Senator Curtis's description. My daughter and I went by U-Haul across the country, starting the East Coast, and we went through those East Coast hills, and by the morning of the third day, she woke up and saw the mountains. We were in the middle of the Rockies, and her eyes got wide, and she said, "Now I understand, Dad, why you say the only real mountains are in the West." So let's just say it's a bipartisan fact, agreed to right here. Mr. Zeldin, you have made an emphasis on the science being the foundation. And one of the concerns that I have is regard to the role of paid influencers. And you have reported that you have been paid to do various op-eds. Would you provide to the committee a list of all of the payments you've received and who is paying you, and a copy of the op-eds you prepared so that we have a complete understanding of your background in that area?
Yes, Senator, and I also have provided that as part of my financial disclosure, and both ethics at EPA and the Office of Government Ethics has reviewed all of those submissions in providing that clearance letter to the committee.
Yes, we do have your financials. They do not give the details on the text of which op-eds, and sometimes it's obscured. For example, the $50,000 to $100,000 that you were paid for op-eds, but it also says speaking fees, use of media studio, and so forth. So if you could tie the actual payments for the op-eds to the op-eds you wrote, so it's just so we have a clear and transparent understanding of that piece, because we want to have our folks serve the public interest and have that foundations of science you're speaking to, but I think the citizens deserve to understand as we wrestle with this moment, that background. And also the background, you've rented out your media studio multiple times. Was that for doing interviews? Did you do interviews in your media studio and then you asked to be paid for using your own media studio for interviews?
So twofold. First off, the first point, I have provided a breakdown of every individual op-ed as well as the publication and the date of the publication. Any further, if you need us to print up what was referenced, we're happy to do that. And as far as the media studio, I owned a media studio. So networks could rent, can use that studio for a TV hit.
Thank you. Appreciate that, those details, and we'll take a look at that list. You've also, over the course of your career, received a lot of campaign funding from the oil and gas industry. I think it's estimated at $270,000. Can you assure citizens that the campaign support you've received from oil and gas industry will not influence your service to the public of the United States?
Yes, Senator, there's no donation that anyone has ever provided me at any point of any amount that is going to influence any decision that I make in this position or beyond.
Okay. Second, I want to emphasize the point that my colleagues have made about climate change. We are seeing a massive loss of insurance policies on the West Coast and in Florida. In Florida, 16 companies have gone bankrupt. Another 16 have stopped issuing policies. State Farm has withdrawn a massive number of policies from California. We had 6 towns burned to the ground in my home state of Oregon, less well publicized across the country. So it is really a challenge. Huge number of folks in California are having to go to a state program they created, same in Florida, because no insurance would insure properties. The problem with those is there's no great solution. They're extremely expensive and difficult and have very limited coverage. All right, so I want to continue on plastics. I've been very concerned about plastics. We have more and more articles. This article I'll submit for the record. Thank you. For Washington Post has just found out about the threat between microplastics and cancer, and it goes on to talk about colon cancer, the imbalance of antioxidants, lung cancer. We've had a whole series of articles about heart disease. We have this article, Bioaccumulation of Microplastics in Human Brains, out of New Mexico. It's out for peer review right now, but we're learning more and more. We now have plastics in breast milk, plastics in every organ of the body, and plastics in our brain. In fact, it turns out, according to this study, if this turns out to be accurate, the highest accumulation of plastics is in our brains. We also have a record of microplastics and nanoplastics affecting human fertility. And plastic is, by its chemical structure, an endocrine disruptor. Are you familiar? Have you steeped yourself in the science and problems associated with plastics in the human body?
Yes, Senator, and I enjoyed being able to meet with you and your team in your office, where clearly this is an issue of great interest and passion of yours. I would look forward to an opportunity to be able to read what you're referencing specifically, just so that I can become intimately familiar with any detail that you're citing that I have not read before.
I was hoping that's what you're going to do after our meeting in our office. You were going to go out and say, I
And-
got to
and
read all
and
these
I have,
articles.
Senator, and I would look forward to continuing to read even further.
There is an effort by the chemical industry to say, don't worry, we'll just melt everything down in big pots to keep plastics out of the waste stream. They call it chemical recycling. It's basically thermal melting. But it has proved to only be usable in very limited, basically manufacturing waste as opposed to post-consumer plastics. But they're trying to sell it as the absolute cure. Don't worry, we can go from 8% recycling in America to a high percent. Are you familiar with the very limited role, but the chemical industry is trying to say, don't worry, be happy on plastics?
I'm aware, yes, sir.
Do you understand, and have you made yourself knowledgeable of the inaccuracies that are being publicized about this thermal strategy?
Senator, I am researching and reading all that's being provided on all sides of this issue. Going back to my time in the House, I advocated to clean up our waterways around my district, and as I cited in my opening, the bipartisan work between Senator Whitehouse and Senator Sullivan on Save Our Seas and Save Our Seas 2.0 should be a model to be followed of bipartisanship to go even further.
Yeah. I see I'm over time. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'll just close by saying, in plastics, there's a big story trying to be sold about don't worry. It'll be your responsibility to make sure you speak the truth to the American people.
Thank you, Senator.